We start in New York at the United Nations, and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is claiming overwhelming support from the UN Security Council after an emergency session was called to address tensions with the United States. The meeting comes as the US continues its military presence near Venezuela and has seized vessels carrying Venezuelan crude. Maduro labeled these actions as piracy and reiterated that no one will defeat his country. The US remains firm, vowing to enforce sanctions to cut off resources to Maduro's government. Russia and China have backed Venezuela, with Russia warning that other Latin American nations could be next. Listen in to what the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro had to say on the issue.
Y ha surgido con fortaleza propia que no le debemos a nadie. Yo no le debo un centavo a nadie. Nosotros no le debemos nada a nadie. Al contrario, son otros los que nos deben a nosotros. Y cualquier perturbación que se presentase será atendida y con el favor de Dios, cantando nuestro mantra, Dios proveerá, Dios proveerá, Dios proveerá. Dios nos dará las soluciones junto al pueblo y toda perturbación será enfrentada, solucionada y superada. Toda perturbación que se pueda presentar para perfeccionar el sistema económico de los 14 motores, para perfeccionar el sistema de la prosperidad económica independiente y soberana.
Meanwhile, Venezuela's National Assembly has unanimously passed a law that could see prison sentences of up to 20 years for anyone promoting or financing piracy or blockades. The law, introduced in response to recent US sanctions against Venezuelan oil shipments, targets international crimes as well. This follows the US Coast Guard's seizure of a sanctioned supertanker carrying Venezuelan crude earlier this month and its attempt to intercept 2 other vessels linked to Venezuela. These actions mark Washington's toughest measures against state oil company PDVSA since its sanctions in 2019. The law now heads to Venezuela's executive for approval and will take effect once published in the official Gazette. Let's listen in to the President of Venezuela's National Assembly, Jorge Rodríguez's statements.
Consideración, honorables diputadas y honorables diputados. Aquellos que estén a favor de aprobar la segunda discusión del proyecto de ley de protección de las libertades de navegación y comercio contra la piratería, bloqueos y otros actos ilícitos internacionales, sírvanse manifestarlo con la señal de costumbre. Queda aprobada la ley por unanimidad. En consecuencia, se declara sancionada la ley de protección de las libertades de navegación y comercio contra la piratería, bloqueos y otros actos ilícitos internacionales.
Okay, this of course comes as tensions between Washington and Caracas continue to escalate. The United States now have seized 2 what they call sanctioned oil tankers off the coast of Venezuela in international waters. Venezuela, however, has called this piracy, once again reiterating the tensions between the 2 countries. Of course, Donald Trump continues to allege Nicolas Maduro's government that it supports narco-trafficking operations in the region and has led a campaign of bombing of alleged narco-terrorists in the Caribbean Sea. This UN Security Council vote follows this entire campaign. Now joining us is Major General Sudhakar. He is a senior geopolitical and strategic defence expert, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us, Sudhakar. It is always a pleasure. Let's start off with the UNSC meeting that has happened within the past 24 hours. In New York, Russia and China have backed Venezuela in de-escalating this conflict. Of course, due to veto politics, this has gone nowhere, with the United States being a permanent member. But does this translate into real projection here, or is it just veto politics as we've just mentioned?
Thomas, good morning. Thank you for getting me for this very important show. This is, I would say, this is going to be a very significant turnaround of 21st century, can be called as a very important milestone. When I'm saying this, it is uh, it is annotated with strategic rivalry at its peak. When I say this, the Monroe Doctrine and the doctrine of Russia, unknown doctrine of Russia, they will be clashing against each other. The behind the scene, what is happening is very, very important to be understood. While we do know that USA forces have already isolated Venezuela from Caribbean, and the CIA elements are already operating in the Caracas, and their aim and one of the objective is to carry out regime change, but the deeper and the long-term objective is to acquire their dominance on the oil minefields or oil fields of Venezuela. So be that as it may, let me also share with your viewers that the Russian presence, as we are talking today, the oceanic, these are hypersonic missiles which move at a speed of 11 Mach. They are already deployed on the soil of Venezuela. And as per the open source kind of collation I have done till now in past 2 to 3 days, there are Russian fleets which are moving close to the Caribbean Sea along the coast of Venezuela. If this is true, particularly if the naval destroyer of Russian Navy is close to the Venezuela coast, it is going to actually manifest into a very dangerous flare-up. Therefore, we must guard against it. To answer your question in specific, I think it much more beyond than the rhetorics. The China and Russia coming together with total, I would say, consensus and support in favor of Venezuela, and United Nations Security Council would do well to preempt any kind of flare-up between America and all the allied members of Russia, China, maybe Iran in times ahead, maybe North Korea, along with Venezuela. It's a very dangerous flashpoint which may turn out into very, very conflicting and unmanageable in times ahead.
Yes, and Maduro calls these seizures of these two major tankers that have been seized by the United States piracy. He's accused the United States of extortion. Under international maritime law, do you think those actions meet that definition, or is this just political theatre with no real legal fruition going to come about?
It's all game of dominance, Thomas. I'm afraid I must call it out. There is no international law like this to hijack a ship or a vessel of a neighboring country or a tanker the way US is doing. This definitely, it is flexing a muscle, trying to assert their authority and supremacy and dominance, and put pressure on Venezuela so that Venezuela succumbs to pressure at the earliest. But I don't think, as per my study and analysis, in the changing dynamics of geopolitics and the footprint, be it the Wagner Group of Russia or the naval fleet and China's presence. You see, China is providing what? Finance and trade. Similarly, North Korea is providing technology, of missile technology. Russia is providing technology and minerals. Likewise, Russia also is extending the military might. So Venezuela is absolutely in a ticky-boo situation. Therefore, there will be no fears as far as Maduro is concerned. And such practices of, seizing the tankers of the neighboring countries, of oil tankers or the vessels, unilaterally without following the laws of the sea and the laws of the land and the international rules which are applicable to UNICLAUS, United Nations Convention of Sea Laws and Conventions, 1982. I don't think, I have read the UNCLOS 82 in detail.
Yes.
I don't think such practices are actually covered in that. These are absolutely blatant defiance of international rule. This must be objected to and called out by one and all. Back to you, Thomas.
Yes, Major General Sudarkarji, thank you very much for joining us. As always, it is a pleasure. We now move over to the United